People often say faith is believing without evidence, that it's a kind of intellectual shortcut, a way of avoiding hard questions or uncomfortable truths. You'll hear phrases like, faith is just a leap into the dark, or you believe because you're afraid to think. In popular culture, faith is often portrayed as the opposite of intelligence, as something you turn to when reason fails, or when you don't want to follow the evidence all the way through. But what if that definition of faith is wrong? What if Christianity, at its very foundation, actually insists that faith begins with thinking, not with the absence of it? Because historically, Christianity has never understood faith and reason as enemies locked in combat. It has understood them as partners, distinct but deeply connected. Different tools aimed at the same goal: truth. From the earliest centuries of Christianity, believers wrestled seriously with reason, logic, and evidence. They didn't run from philosophy. They engaged it. Augustine of Hippo, writing in the 4th century, famously said, "I believe in order to understand, and I understand in order to believe." That's not anti-intellectual. That's a feedback loop. Augustine recognized that belief and understanding shape one another. You don't reason in a vacuum. You reason from assumptions, values, and commitments. And as understanding grows, belief becomes more informed, more refined, more honest. Centuries later, Thomas Aquinas would argue that reason is one of God's greatest gifts to humanity. For Aquinas, reason allows us to explore the natural world, to examine causes, test claims, weigh evidence, and pursue truth wherever it leads. Faith doesn't cancel reason. It doesn't override it. It builds on it. Christianity never asked people to stop asking questions. It asked them to ask better ones, and to be brave enough to follow the answers. Reason is powerful. It helps us understand how the universe works. It uncovers patterns, predicts outcomes, and reveals astonishing order in reality. Through reason, we discover mathematics, physics, biology, and logic. We map galaxies. We decode DNA. We send signals across space. But reason also has limits. Reason can tell you that the universe appears ordered, but it can't finally tell you why that order exists at all. It can tell you that moral values feel real and universal, that some things are truly right and others truly wrong. But it struggles to explain why those moral obligations should bind us, even when obedience costs us something. Reason can tell you how things happen. It's less equipped to answer why they matter. And this isn't a failure of reason. It's simply the nature of being human. A tool can be powerful without being sufficient for every task. And recognizing the limits of reason isn't irrational. It's honest. Here's the irony that often gets overlooked. Everyone lives by faith. Not necessarily religious faith, but trust. You trust history books even though you weren't there. You trust scientists whose experiments you've never personally replicated. You trust doctors even though you don't fully understand the mechanisms behind their diagnoses. You trust your friends, your partner, your family. And none of that trust comes with mathematical certainty. You can't prove, beyond all possible doubt, that you'll never be betrayed. Yet you still choose relationship. That kind of trust isn't irrational. It's relational. It's based on testimony, consistency, past experience, credibility, and coherence. Christian faith works the same way. It doesn't say, believe without evidence. It says, look at the evidence and decide whether trust is reasonable. Christian faith is not primarily about abstract ideas or blind assent to doctrines. At its core, it's about trust in a person. Trust built on historical claims. Claims about Jesus of Nazareth, his life, his teachings, his execution, and the claim of his resurrection. Trust built on coherence, a worldview that makes sense of human dignity, moral responsibility, suffering, hope, and meaning. Trust built on experience, lived transformation, personal change, enduring community, and a continuity that stretches across centuries and cultures. Faith, in this sense, is not closing your eyes to reality. It's opening them, examining what's there, and then choosing to trust. Not because you've answered every question, but because the trust itself makes sense of the whole. Christian faith doesn't shut down reason. It challenges it, refines it, pushes it deeper. Faith invites reason to ask questions it can't ignore forever. Why is there something rather than nothing? Why do we long for meaning, beauty, and justice? Why do we experience guilt, hope, and love as more than chemical accidents? Why do we recognize good and evil so intuitively, even when it costs us? Faith doesn't dismiss these questions as illusions. It leans into them. And then it suggests something radical. Maybe truth isn't just something to analyze from a distance. Maybe it's something to respond to, something personal, something that calls for trust, not just observation. Faith begins where arrogance ends, not because we stop thinking, but because we admit that thinking alone isn't enough to carry the full weight of reality. Faith is the posture of humility that says, I've followed reason as far as it can go, and now I'm willing to listen. Not blindly, not foolishly, not lazily, but honestly. And maybe that's what faith really is. Not the absence of reason, not a leap into darkness, but the courage to trust after reason has done its work. Thanks for watching. If this video made you pause, question, or see things differently, then it did its job. Feel free to explore more ideas here, and as always, keep thinking.